I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Isla Fisher, who portrays the mysterious Mary on the six-part comedy drama Wolf Like Me. Isla, I would say that Wolf Like Me is an enchanting, fantasy-tinged, romantic comedy drama. Like, there's a lot going on, but ultimately it contemplates how two damaged or grieving people can let their guard down and find happiness. And I found that actually really quite engaging and rewarding. How would you normally describe the show to people?
It's like it's a rom-com with a heightened element that weirdly, even though it's something no one can identify with, the baggage that we bring into relationships is something we all identify with. And I think it has a great take on diversity and the richness of meeting people who are different from us and connecting despite our differences.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And of course, like, a lot of this is allegory or however you want to describe it, but there's a sci-fi element to it, which we won't go. Well, and we're going to do some spoilers a little later. So
Okay.
people, when you want to, I'll let you know to turn off the video, viewers, when we get into spoilers. So you play Mary. She's a reclusive advice columnist, I guess you'd call her, and
Yeah.
she encounters Gary, played by the irrepressible Josh Gad, who we adore, and in a series of coincidental events. And then immediately, I felt I was fixated on the dynamic between you both. And I know
Oh,
you hear this often, like it sounds cliche to say, "Oh, chemistry was so great," but honestly, I just felt like there was something there between the two of you, and I really enjoyed that repartee. I just wondering what it was like to work alongside Josh.
we really do get along really well, Josh and I. I feel like he was so supportive from the very beginning, and he has a way of putting you at ease. There's just a comfort level. He makes a lot of jokes, which is obviously disarming and fun, but there's also like no judgment. So when you're performing with him, he's not. I don't know, sometimes there's an unconscious competition that goes on between actors trying to score in a scene, and neither Josh or nor I have that kind of attitude to working together. So we came at it both as to how can we help each other shine? How can we grind such a heightened scenario in reality, play it as with a real, as truthful as possible so that the jokes, when they do come, land. And and yeah, I happen to know him personally through my husband as well. So I already had heard such great things about him. And he really was everything, one could hope for in a scene partner.
Yeah, so it felt like it was a really warts and all kind of portrayal. You guys, it's a pretty short series. It's only six parts. It's a half an hour format. So you don't have a lot of time to establish that. And I found that, with Abe Forsyth's beautiful writing, that I think you managed to hook us quite early. And I felt because it was really honest. It's hard for me to explain because I'm not a performer. So I'm just wondering whether you can pinpoint what it was about you and Josh and the way that you were able to just be very raw and kind of honest and authentic for the audience.
Well, I think there's something in all of us that is quite rightly terrified to fall in love, because you really truly give your heart to somebody or something, or whatever we love, and you know that it can be broken, and it can, you can be damaged almost for life, without sounding dramatic. And I think these characters, um the stakes are even higher for them because of their loss and their histories, without, as you mentioned, giving away any spoilers. So I think that the way they the way that they are almost through serendipity and the universe, as a creates these circumstances where they kind of bash into each other, and then he ends up seeing a side of her life that she had no intention of ever sharing. It means they kind of peel open the onion really quickly, and they have to kind of see each other's failings so soon. I do think that adds to kind of the pathos and the drama of their connection. And they also have a similar sort of sense of humor. She wants a child, he has one. He's ashamed of the way he parented. She's ashamed of the kind of wife she had been in the past. And so there are things that they have in common too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'll make sense. Like, it's kind of almost horrifying because we've all pretty much been there in
Yeah.
some way, shape, or form, where you have to eventually start to open up.
Yeah.
And get
And,
that.
and at that point, you know, if you don't reveal who you really are to someone,
Yeah,
then you can never experience the true joy of being seen and loved by them. But at the same time, once you reveal it, if it is not if it is not accepted, there it
yeah.
is, you know, heartbreaking.
Like, what stakes are higher than that? I don't think there are
There aren't
many.
any. I mean, no.
Yeah,
And as I
and
get
so
older and I see people who have, for whatever reason, married or been unlucky in love, then you appreciate it even more when you've been fortunate enough to, you know, find somebody who takes on your baggage and your dark sides align. And yeah, and a
yeah,
lot of rom-coms or romances explored in film just focus on the kind of the, you know, the serotonin of attraction and the, you know, the adrenaline of the first kiss and all the sort of stuff that's sort of the lighter side of romance, what people share in common, but they forget that there's actually this real attraction to one another's darker sides.
absolutely. And because I mean, there's nothing freer than being yourself. And of course, we've seen that story perhaps in other forms where, you know, the show can end up being quite depressing, or it can be, you know, very engaging but also quite serious. This show, though, to me, is more of a fable, and it's
Yeah, yeah,
lighter,
it is
it's
like a fable. You're right.
beautiful. Yeah, it's just beautiful to look at. There's just something about the way Abe was able to fashion this in this tone that I was not expecting. I
Yeah.
really respect him as a creator. What are your thoughts on his unique voice to his writing and directing?
I completely agree with you. And what's wonderful about Abe is he is this kind of visionary and he does do these kind of unusual shots and change perspective in a scene. So he'll be in Gary's point of view, but then move to Mary's. And, you know, when we were shooting, I was sort of like, hang on, who, you know, I was a bit nervous at the beginning, but then I understood his rhythm and the rhythm of the dialogue. And when he chooses to have tension and when he chooses to have long monologues where the audience are kind of lulled into a false sense of security, then he'll follow it with a really pacey running scene or, you know, and I think he's just a very unique filmmaker. And I saw that with his last movie. And I thought that was also tonally very complicated and could easily have been you know, have not worked. But Abe just, he really understands the characters in the world, but more importantly, he doesn't condescend his audience and he doesn't play to them. He uses, he's sort of into, you know, he uses music a lot of the time to,
Yeah.
he'll decide on a character, you know, he's just I think he's just a very creative dude. And I enjoyed every minute. I trusted him. This story was very personal for him. It's not up to me to rather to tell his story, but it came from his own experiences in some ways. And so Josh and I were very on board with, you know, executing his vision to the best of our ability possible and trusting our captain completely.
Yeah, and you can absolutely tell when everyone's aligned and is just trying to get to the same outcome. It's yeah, it really works. And as you say, it could have gone really pear-shaped because tonally it's
Yeah.
a little unusual.
Yeah, yeah,
But it works.
yeah.
So and you filmed this in Sydney. Obviously, you're an Aussie. Well, we can tell that. About 20 minutes from me, actually, where you filmed it. But it's set in Adelaide. So how much did you enjoy, or do you enjoy generally, I guess, working on local productions in between bigger projects overseas?
Yes, I really enjoyed this particularly. I'd forgotten that like everyone in Australia is just hilarious. And like even the bloke that drives, like everybody on set has a joke for you. Everyone's laughing in between. Everyone has like a neggy name for each other. Like they put each other down in like a really comedic and hilarious. And it was like familial. It was like I'm back with my family and we're like bickering on set. And it was just it was a great reprieve. It was really fun.
Yeah, it is so cool actually. When I'm like that with my American mates, they're sometimes looking at me like I'm a little bit strange. Well, not, you know, it's because we are strange as a people. Um, Speaking of, like, you're very well known in Australia, you know, and, you know, people grew up with you on Home and Away, and you've been on lots of other different productions. And I would say you're almost a household name here,
Oh, wow.
but you've forged a successful career overseas pretty quickly, actually, when you look at your credits. for me, I thought Nocturnal Animals, incredible performance, Arrested Development, Curb Your Enthusiasm, that was a great one episode. So I'm wondering, is an Aussie background a pro or a con as a working actor in LA these days?
Oh, I think it's a pro. I really do. I think there is. I think we grew, well, at least in my day before, we didn't have tablets and iPhones and texting and FaceTime and social media. So we watched TV for entertainment a lot of the time, and in my day. And so it was mainly American content for the most part. And I think every one of us as a result, at least my Aussie acting mates, they can do American dialects for any dialect from America at any time, any place, after any amount of beers. And I do feel like we have a great state funded drama schools all dotted all over the country. And we do have, we have a great, I think Aussie work ethic is just, we're really curious and hardworking and positive, and we persevere. And I think that what we've seen recently in show business, at least in front of the lens, and hopefully it's moving that way behind, is more diversity. There are more opportunities for everybody to have their stories told, to be seen, and hopefully this is this trend will continue on.
Yeah, I really hope so too. That's such a great thing to remind us all about. One final question before we get into spoilery stuff. You serve as an executive producer on the show as well. Now, sometimes that's just an empty title that means nothing, but did that role at all allow you to contribute over and above being one of the leads on the show?
That's a really good question. And I don't really know. I mean, I've produced other stuff that I've definitely been involved in more from in a developmental phase, whereas this was developed not completely. Abe was very open to, a lot of my jokes about eating organic chickens or whatever. He incorporated them into the script, and he was very, he was very include, and I was there for the casting. So yeah, I think I was involved to a degree, but not in a way that felt overwhelming. And what's great about someone like Abe is he writes, he directs, he writes all of these episodes alone, and they come from his imagination. And so it's not done by a committee. It's not like, there's not a million voices. And that's why I think it is such a singular and beautiful, story with a clear perspective.
Yeah, I figured as much as well. It does feel like a very singular perspective from his point of view, and which is what makes it work. Okay, people, if you haven't seen the show, go and see it. It's on Amazon Prime around the world. It's on Stan in Australia. It's on Peacock in the US. Okay, off you go and come back. Now, every full moon. Welcome back. Every full moon, Mary turns into a huge deadly werewolf. Okay, so that's the big
very red werewolf too. They made the werewolf is not very attractive. I did say to Abe when he pitched the show to me, I did picture myself for some reason being a good-looking werewolf. Not that it matters how your werewolf looks, but this werewolf is pretty gruesome.
She's I'm assuming pretty, like you only see her towards the end, and which is a question I want to ask Abe one day if I ever meet him, because you don't see a lot of the werewolf all in your head until you finally see her at the end. She's pretty gruesome, but I thought she was kind of cute. She had a look about her. But she's big.
But I think you're following the formula a little of Jaws, where you don't really see Jaws until the end, and it's the
That's right.
The music, and we get the feeling, and we create the tension, and we have the worlds and the characters, and everything's set up, and then you can use you can use sparingly and create just as much, excitement.
Exactly. I was thinking at first it was maybe a budget thing, but it works. You don't want to see too much of her until later, right? So the thing is, though, I was wondering,
not a budget thing.
It wasn't a budget thing.
How rude! We had a very good budget.
So what I was wondering was this: does that inform any of your choices as the actor portraying Mary, knowing what she is? Like what she really is and what she really looks like at all?
Sorry, what is the question? Does what inform?
The fact that she's this big gruesome red werewolf, and you know what she looks like. You've probably seen images of what she's going to look like and what she's capable of. Like, she will rip anyone apart. She's deadly.
Yes.
Does that inform? Like, I felt like because someone's Mary holding back.
It
Oh,
doesn't, it doesn't, because you don't want to step on that. You don't want to kind of highlight it. With fantasy as a genre, it's
yeah,
like, it's an escape from reality, obviously. And it's like,
yeah.
you're giving somebody, I don't know, you're teaching an audience the importance of like, magic and I don't know, perseverance and resilience. You're teaching them a bunch of stuff through this fantasy story. And so I think I was cautious not to. I don't know. It's not a pantomime. I can't play. I mean, I know the American Werewolf in Paris has this fantastic
Oh,
transformation scene where he gets to, physically, which would obviously be really fun. And I played around with that when I was, in preparing for the role. Obviously, you do like, some concrete research that involves who, what, when, why of the character and where they went to uni, whatever, and their relationships and their history. And then you do the voice and the walk. And part of her being a werewolf meant that I obviously, I watched a lot of nature documentaries on werewolves. I studied, there's a whole online, for example, group of people who believe they're werewolves, or I believe their
wow.
spirit animal is a werewolf, and they're very connected. Wolves are pack animals like humans. There's people feel very passionately and strongly about werewolves. And so I was very mindful of, you know, I went down all the paths. Let's say there's lots of paths to the waterfall, and I explored many. But I definitely didn't want anybody watching the show to feel as if, um, it was tipped at all. Like, oh yeah, she's a werewolf. I wanted her to be a normal woman who has an unfortunate affliction. When there's a full moon, she's going to snack on her husband or a couple of people at the Holiday Inn.
That's it. And yeah, and don't blame her. But I could tell, there's parts where Mary's running frantically back to her house in
Yeah.
terror.
Yeah.
And that's your performance in those moments made me terrified of what she was. And I
Oh,
think
thank
that's,
you.
yeah, it really worked for me. My favorite scene is Gary serenading Mary with Crowded House at Daydream. I think it's just like
Oh, okay.
beautiful.
That was my idea.
Really,
It was my idea that he
it is
serenade
the
her, and it
best.
was Josh's idea that it be that song. And what's brilliant about Abe is the way that he chose to, shoot it, how intimately he, the way he pans the camera into Mary hearing Gary sing this. It just is so like emotional.
Yes,
And I
it's
kept
all
thinking, Isla, do a take that you don't weep, because you never know. Abe might get in the edit and think, no, Mary should be withholding now. We should not know. We don't want to tip where their relationship's headed. But I could not hear Josh Gad as Gary and Mary. I mean, I could cry just thinking about it. Like, it was just so emotional hearing him like be so vulnerable in front of her when they'd just known each other such a short period of time.
it's a killer, that pardon the pun, it's a killer scene because Mary, you as Mary, like the tearing up, it was the moment where I was like, okay, these two better work out or I'm going to be pissed
Oh.
off. Like that, I was in, like it was our,
I'll be
wait,
pissed off.
I'm going to be pissed off if this doesn't work out. Beautiful scene. And the other scene I really like, it's a really simple scene for you, but when you're explaining to his daughter about the spacecraft
Carl
and the
Sagan.
music,
Yeah.
yeah, like that is
Oh, very
beautiful.
romantic and
It's
emotional.
so on you. It's you really. Just Mary's so enraptured by the idea. It made me enraptured by the idea. It was a really good
Yeah.
scene.
Oh, thank you. No, that was important too, because it reveals that she is a romantic, despite saying she doesn't want to be with anyone or open, in that way. She longs for it, and she sort of asks, permission really in that scene. And I feel like Emma gives it to her. Yeah, it's very sweet. I enjoyed playing a character like Mary. You always want to play a character that hides a secret, because it's something to sparkle the audience and to entertain them with. And Mary was just such a great opportunity to, um, play someone who's the opposite of me. I'm such a gregarious person. I love my friends. I love to be around people. Um, like, I can just chat and chat, as you can imagine from this conversation. And so Mary's someone who's so closed off. She's someone who can't have anyone around her, who's so awkward socially, who doesn't know what to say, who can't even kind of like drive a car without smashing into somebody, because she's so overwhelmed with guilt and shame. So it's just always good to, like, I don't know, I have been, without aging myself, sort of, in this business for 30 years now. And And I still get super excited when I get the challenge of playing someone or that I haven't really played, anyone similar to this person. And Mary was definitely someone that I was like very shy of at the beginning. I was like, oh, who's Mary? Mary, where are you? I felt like it took me longer than normal to find her. And then once I did, it was just fun.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And of course, the moral to the story is nobody's perfect, right? And that's what Wolf Like Me is trying to say. And I really liked that. It really made it was a really fun watch. Everyone, make sure you give it a go. You could smash it in one weekend. It's very easy watch. It's a beautiful watch. And Isla, thank you so much for your time today and your insights on the show, and good luck for your next project.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much. Glad you enjoyed Fiji.